Welcome to day 4 of my Momumentary on single moms raising food allergic kids. I'm putting together day 3 and day 4 because they kind of run in conjunction with each other with some of the issues that I've been having. So on day 3, I know I mentioned about getting the forms from the doctor, sending them to the school, thinking everything's going to be hunky-dory, everything's going to be great. Well, I was wrong. So with that said, got a phone call from the school, and they didn't see on the documentation where it specifically said that a particular accommodation needed to be made for my child during lunch. Although all the allergens were there, all the information said keep her away from things, certain triggers, on and on and on, yada, 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 yada. However, because of a technicality, I now have to go back to the physician and get another document from him to make sure that this particular accommodation is met, because there's nothing specific, even though everything points to exactly what needs to be done. And they can't exactly take my word for it anymore. They have to have something specific for this particular item. And without going too deep into it, it's so clear in the documentation that they need to make this particular accommodation that it's not funny. And it has to do with seating arrangements and lunch on a particular day when certain foods are served. Even though it's clear in her action plan and clear in all the other documentation that it's a concern. But like I said, because there's no particular specific letter that says you must do A, B, C, D, and E, then with that in mind, I have to now go back to the physician and get that information. So that was the directive that I had. And fortunately, I was able to call the doctor's office. The directive was to go back to them. And they, like myself, thought that made no sense. However, they agreed that they were going to send the information over to me so that I could give that to them, to the school, to make sure that the specific directive was in place for the accommodation for my child. So this is the part where things can kind of get a little snarly a little bit when it gets down to things that are outside of the norm for what needs to be done for a child. Again, every single person that has this disorder, it's different. It's different for each and every one of them. No two people are ever the same, adult or child. And there's a baseline, there's a benchmark that we use to kind of give us a reference point, so to speak, but everything's on a case-by-case basis. Now, we haven't even touched her other issues yet that we have to deal with the other accompanying disorders. So, yeah, it's getting a little sticky. And I'm in for a ride so that we can figure out how we can make this happen and make it easy and smooth for everybody. And sometimes you want to be nice, but then there are other times where you simply can't sugarcoat things. And it's not one of those things I can sugarcoat. It's not right, it's not fair, but it just is. One good thing I'm fortunate about is that with this particular school, unlike the other, the bus drivers are trained on epinephrine administration and recognition of anaphylaxis. So that's, kudos to them and a feather in their hat. Whereas with the other school, they were willing to train the drivers. However, because they contracted out to a separate bus company, the bus company was afraid of liability issues and refused to allow their drivers to be trained. So I had to drive her to and from school every day. So I'm really lucky this time. I don't have to do that. Unfortunately, because of the time that school starts, I still have to take her somewhere. So I have to take her to a before and after care program. Children that are like her Even though in some states, maybe 10 or 12 years old, they can be left alone for a couple of hours. You have to be really careful when they have a health condition. If something happens and they're alone at that time, you could be liable. I'm not an attorney, but it's a possibility. So if you have those questions in your state, you definitely want to consult legal counsel on that to find out when you can and can't leave them alone, and if their medical condition impacts that in any way. I'd hate to see any of you on the 5 o'clock news because of something happening, and getting in trouble legally would be something that would be tough. But I know that the harder part would be if something were to happen to your child. So here I am, day 4, and we're doing my Momumentary. I'll see you guys on day 5. Oh, wait a minute. There's a little person over to the side. Sweetie, you feel like talking?
Okay.
So what were you telling me the other day about how it is to be you?
Well, it's kind of hard because sometimes I feel like no one kind of understands, and people are going to always talking about like I wish I was a kid again, but sometimes I don't know if I want to be a kid sometimes.
So what's the difference between being a kid and being a grown-up for you?
Well, I don't have to pay bills.
But you said sometimes you don't know if you want to be a kid. What does that mean?
Because I'm gonna go out of some good allergies, but sometimes I don't know.
You don't know.
I just,
Okay. Well, we're going to keep hoping. And, we pray in this house, so we're going to keep praying. Right? Yeah. I love you.
you too.
See you guys tomorrow.